Professor Zin, a simple question. Do you think that the euro area with the 17 member states can survive?
I think it is unlikely that it will survive with all its 17 member states, because the price levels are so much out of equilibrium that a realignment which is necessary is difficult to achieve for some countries.
And concerning, let's say for example Greece, we had economic trouble and now we have political trouble over economic trouble. So what is your prediction?
Greece has become very expensive because of the cheap flow of credit which came in the early years of the euro. And the government salaries were financed with credit, more employment in the government was financed with credit, the whole economy was pumped up with credit from abroad. Now, in the financial crisis, then all of a sudden this credit didn't come anymore, and the difficulties began. Greece has no alternative but to become competitive. And becoming competitive means that it would have to devalue if it did have its own currency. Now it is in the euro. It can't devalue. It can do an internal devaluation by cutting its wages and prices. The estimate would be, by Goldman Sachs, 30% for Greece. Another estimate is, in order to be on the same level as Turkey, which is a similar country, a price cut of 37% is necessary. Now, such price cuts cannot be instrumented easily. I think they cannot be implemented. That is the difficulty. They are necessary, but it is impossible to implement them, because if you do that, there's so much strain on the population. There will be so much unemployment that the country could break up. Germany has had a similar experience in the Weimar Republic. We had a fixed exchange rate to the gold because we had to make the reparations in Reichsmark, which were not depreciated relative to gold, while all other countries depreciated or devalued relative to the gold. So Germany became more and more expensive and had to compensate for that by cutting its prices and wages internally. We had an internal devaluation. From 1929 to 33, the German price level went down by 23%, and the wages went down by 30%. This was the recipe to drive Germany to a brink of a civil war. So in other words, this is not possible. No one should demand Greece to carry out such a policy. No? So, but on the other hand, becoming cheaper is absolutely necessary. This is the only way for Greece to become competitive. Only a depreciation. So the consequence is you can do that only outside the euro. I think keeping Greece in the euro means that Greece, for a very long period of time, will be forced into increasing mass unemployment and an unsustainable development. This will be a catastrophe for the population. In order to avoid this catastrophe, there is only one possibility, namely exiting depreciation. This is the easier way. Of course, the transition is not trivial. There will be a bank run. People will withdraw their money from their accounts. There will be all sorts of uncertainties. The banks will have difficulties. So, of course, if that happens, the EU will have to help Greece to overcome this very difficult phase with additional liquidity help, in particular to set up the banking sector. But that period will be short. We have seen that in Argentina. After 3/4 of a year of difficulties, the growth resumed. Yeah? The drachma would quickly depreciate, say by 50%, and then the investors, in particular Greek people who have brought their money into other countries, would return. No? One says there are about 180 billion euros in Switzerland owned by Greek people. So these people currently don't come. Why should they come? If they come, they know they can only lose their money if they invest somewhere, because the current asset prices, everything will not be sustainable. They will fall as soon as the rescue money is stopping, and the rescue money will not be available forever. It just won't. So these people know there is a huge uncertainty, one-sided downward risk for the asset prices, so they don't come. And that is the recipe for disaster. Once Greece exits, depreciates, then they come all immediately. There will be an immediate boom in Greece. They buy real estate because it's very cheap. They buy factories, they invest, they create jobs, and Greece can begin to grow. This is the only possibility which exists for Greece.
But what would the consequences be for Europe and the Eurozone as a whole? I mean, everybody talks about contagion.
Yeah.
I mean, the day Greece announces its the breakup from the euro, people in Portugal would run to the banks to take the money out. Investors in Spain would be in doubt. I mean, how do you calculate the consequences for the whole of the Eurozone?
There are, of course, contagion effects. People in Portugal will think about the situation, and for Portugal it might be the right step. According to Goldman Sachs, Portugal will have to depreciate by 35%. They said Greece by 30, Portugal 35. So Portugal is in a very similar situation. Spain not. The number for Spain is 20%. That's a similar number as for France. France would also have to become cheaper by 20% in order to be competitive. Now, in principle, there are two possibilities. Inside the Eurozone, the respective countries cut their prices, or other countries inflate. Of course, if Germany, the Netherlands, and so on, the core countries would inflate sufficiently quickly, that would also be a possibility to make Greece again competitive. On the other hand, these countries don't want, and the populations have very strong aversion against inflation. The 23 inflation in Germany, the hyperinflation, is still in the bones. Everyone feels that still, and so the population is probably not accepting that. That's the difficulty. Mm-hmm. And given that there won't be such an inflation, staying in the Eurozone means necessarily a long period of stagnation. For France and Spain, it will be a decade of stagnation. That's the best scenario, where Germany and other countries gradually inflate away to make them competitive. But for Greece, this will not be enough, because their way is twice as long as that of Spain. Now, contagion. The investors will look very closely at each particular country, and they will not put all countries in one basket. See, for example, Ireland. Ireland did do this price cut. In the last 5 years, the Irish price level has come down by 15% relative to its competitors in the Eurozone. That is quite an achievement. And this has implied that Ireland now is competitive again. According to Goldman Sachs, they won't have to depreciate. And indeed, their current account now is positive, while it was strongly negative. But the Greek current account was 3 times as large. in the negative direction. That is the difficulty. So the Greek path towards competitiveness in the Eurozone is 3 times as long as the Irish one. So the Greek population and the governments have to ask themselves whether they are willing to accept wage and price cuts 3 times as large as those of Ireland or not. I bet they won't. I think it is impossible. We have seen that in Germany. Lots of economists have written about it. So why try the impossible? You will fail.
If we look back in hindsight, do you think it was a wrong decision, it was a mistake, a political mistake, that Greece joined the euro in the first place?
Yeah, it was a big mistake. It was a big mistake for Greece because the end result is a catastrophe. Let's be honest. No? I think it is a time of history where we have to be honest. And all these political dreams have to be confronted with the truth and the reality. The Greek people have not deserved what is happening now.
And is there an explanation for that mistake? I mean, from the Greek point of view, euro was a dream of joining the A club. But from the European point of view?
Yeah, the politicians have always this idea that there is a priority of political decisions over the laws of economics. And this is simply not true. The laws of economics are stronger than the wish and will of politicians. The politicians are dreaming. And these dreams end at some stage, and they are back in reality, and that's where we are now.
Again, in hindsight, when Greece was cut out from the bond markets early 2010, and there was all these discussions what to do with Greece. Should there be a bailout program, and what kind of bailout program, and with what program attached? Do you also think that the outcome was a mistake, that there should have been a different way of dealing with the Greek debt crisis?
The Greek debt crisis did not begin in 2010. It began in the summer and autumn of 2007 and exacerbated in the Lehman year 2008. Since that time, the current account deficit of Greece has not been financed by the capital markets. It has been financed with the printing press. This is the empirical truth. So there were already huge public credit flows through the ECB system, not through the market. Greece now is in the 5th year of its crisis, and in the 5th year where its current account deficit is publicly financed.
Now, you know better than me that there's talk around that a new deal can be brokered in the European level. Growth pact would be put in practice, some kind of a Marshall Plan, a European Marshall Plan, and all that would bring investors' money back into the Greek economy so that Greece could cut its way through.
No. Public credit will not stick in Greece. What we have seen is that all the credit that is given through the ECB or through public rescue operations to Greece immediately went out as capital flight. It does not stick there. It is not really a benefit for the people. It is a benefit for rich people who can rescue their wealth. That is the bitter truth. So borrowing more is not a solution. It does not create jobs for the Greek. The young people will stay unemployed. And it is a sin, I believe, against the youth of the Greek population if one continues this policy in the Eurozone. At best, the money will be there to finance the pensions of the government, maintain some wages in the government sector, but what the young people need is a future, competitive jobs in the private economy where they can really prosper, and that will not come with further credit. What some people in the EU are dreaming is growth through new credit. This is absurd. You cannot create growth that way. Growth comes through real investment and through savings. Only savings makes growth. At best, one could say one country can grow with the savings of another country, but Greece certainly does not want to become permanently dependent on other countries' savings. So it needs a self-sustained development path. Otherwise, the country will permanently be dependent on other European countries that come and dictate their behavior, which is not okay. I don't think it is okay that the Eurozone countries go to Greece and tell them what to do. This is not appropriate for a separate, proud country as Greece is. So I would definitely, for the purpose of a future of the Greek population, exit as quickly as possible, depreciate, and then a period of self-sustained growth, job creation will start. There is no alternative to this.
So you don't think that what Mr. Hollande will be trying to negotiate with Chancellor Merkel, a renegotiation of the Stability Pact and the New Growth Pact, will do much good?
Yeah, what he wants is what he calls a growth pact. He wants to have public credit from other countries.
And some higher inflation in Germany, I believe.
Yeah, well, that is okay. I would say that is, Germany should accept that. Everyone has to accept things which he doesn't like, and so this is inflation in Germany. But you can't create inflation in Germany if you create public credit flows from Germany to France, say. Then there will be inflation in France and not in Germany. Yeah, and then we will never rebalance. So if we want to rebalance the Eurozone, the savings have to be invested in Germany so that Germany gets more growth, more inflation, imports more goods from other European countries, and so gradually there will be a rebalancing. But not if you organize these growth, so-called growth programs. I think it's a misnomer. In the aggregate, Europe can only grow by saving and not by spending. You can never grow by spending, by consuming. Saving and investment is the opposite of consumption. No? Only if you don't consume the resources but save them so that investment can be financed, can a country grow. But that's the opposite of what Mr. Hollande wants.
Two more questions on the Greek issue. There had been talk in Greece, or especially in this elections period, practically all parties, even the parties that had negotiated the old bailout agreement, they said that there is a way we could renegotiate, give ourselves some more time in this internal devaluation process so that it can be smoother, more easily accepted by the population. Do you see any value in this argument?
No. Greece has not devalued, not at all. If you see the GDP deflator of Greece, the price index of the goods produced in Greece, over the last 5 years, they increased more than the VAT increase. So there was not the slightest sign of price cuts which are necessary to become competitive again. Mm-hmm. And if you continue this way, with credit for another few weeks or months, it will be a terrible situation. You will be permanently directed by other countries. which is not appropriate for a proud, self-sustained country. You should try your own way by becoming independent of this foreign credit. It is not to the benefit. You gain nothing by buying another year or another 2 years. What have you from it? Nothing. Another 2 years of mass unemployment.
The counter-argument is that, okay, but on the other hand, Greece over the last 2 years have cut down its deficit in its public account by an important percentage.
You cut down your deficit and you went into a mass unemployment where more than 50% of the young people is unemployed. This is an unsustainable implication of the EU policy. How bad does the situation in Greece have to become to understand that this is all the wrong policy which we carry out in Europe? Do you want 100% people unemployed? Do you want to have riots in the street? Do you want to have a civil war until people understand that the EU policy is wrong?
But what you say makes sense. But just yesterday there was an ECOFIN meeting in Brussels, and all the EU officials gave out completely the opposite message to Greece.
Yeah,
we want you in. You'll never get out of Euro. Yeah. You should stay in Euro. Yeah. That was yesterday's message.
They are not honest. They are simply not honest, and they may not be economists.
That's a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
And last question. If Greece exits Euro, and Portugal too, that would be it? I mean, can the common currency keep on living with the rest, with the 15 members left?
I would hope so. I would hope that we can keep the euro, and I would hope that Greece at a later point in time re-enters the euro after having depreciated with a new price level, re-enter the euro and try again. I think that would be the right strategy, and so we could stabilize the euro with Greece, with Portugal, after this period where they are out, and rearrange their price levels. That is a possibility, and that's my dream.